Just want to verify everybody's set. We're all good? Okay. Hey, thank you very, very much for being here today. We're going to have a quick statement regarding an incident that occurred in the city of Aurora. And based on some incredible police work, investigative work, and some collaboration, that individual is in custody. So again, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. It's truly appreciated. I'm going to provide an update on a tragic incident that occurred on the Interstate 225 over last weekend. And again, this was a targeted act that left one individual, one male, basically on life support right now, today. And his prognosis is very troubling, to say the least. And this is without question impacted not only that individual, but the entire community of Aurora. Again, I want to give a brief interview, and then I'm going to pass it to Assistant Chief Hildebrand, who is going to give some more specifics and more details on what our personnel here at the Aurora Police Department did. So again, on Saturday at about 1:14 in the morning, officers responded to a car-to-car shooting on the northbound 125 freeway near East 6th Avenue. Officers responded and they located a single victim crash that was alongside the freeway. It actually was in the center of the freeway. It hit the partition between the north and the south lanes. What we determined and what the officers originally found in that vehicle was an individual who had sustained multiple gunshot wounds. It was 2 to the neck and 1 to the arm, and it appeared that 5 total rounds were actually expended. The victim was transported to a local hospital. He is presently, as I mentioned earlier, is on life-threatening injuries. He is presently on a respirator, and he is being held and maintained his clinging to life through mechanics, which unfortunately at this point are going to come to a conclusion shortly. There's not expected to survive, and that's really one of the aspects that I want to focus on, because when those officers arrived on that scene, that's what they had, very little. They had an individual that was incapacitated. They had a vehicle that was crashed into the middle of the 125. They had very to no information about what occurred. They observed and saw gunshot wounds on our victim. And from that point to where we are now, it's amazing that we are here. Because what we have today is an individual who was identified, a weapon that was identified, a reason was identified, and a suspect was taken into custody. And again, that was based on a lot of incredible police work that was done by our department. It was incredible investigative work done by our detective personnel, and it was also work that was done in collaboration with HSI and Department of Homeland Security and ICE. All of those things resulted in a very violent, very troubling situation coming to a positive conclusion. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Chief Hildebrand, who is going to give some specifics of the investigation.
First, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Again, the purpose of this press conference is to give some updates on this very good investigation by our team, also to highlight how technology and our partnerships with federal agencies helped for a successful resolution in this case. I want to reiterate, this was not a random attack, but rather a targeted incident. I know whenever you have a shooting on the highway, it causes legitimate public safety concerns. Was this a road rage? What was the motive behind this? And I'll get into that a little bit, but I want the community to know that this was targeted specifically against our victim. And please keep the victim in our thoughts and prayers. Like the chief said, he's clinging to life. The prognosis is very poor at this time. So as the chief said, on Saturday, October 18th at 1:14 a.m., there was a shooting along southbound I-225 at 6th Avenue. After the victim was transported to the hospital with multiple gunshot wounds, our gun violence suppression team immediately responded to the scene and led this investigation. In the initial onset, there was very little information. There was a witness that described a car fleeing, which ended up not being the suspect vehicle. But what our team did is they started working with our real-time information center using our flock technology through cameras and through license plate readers. and they were able to backtrack our victim's path throughout that night. They actually were able to locate specific locations that victim went to. It actually led us to some people that we interviewed that helped shed some light on what happened in this incident. Ultimately, through backtracking this incident on our camera systems and LPR, not only did we locate the victim, but we located somebody following our victim, somebody who was chasing our victim throughout the night, stalking our victim as he proceeded through his day without knowing that somebody was chasing him around the city and was going to do him harm later that night. So we were able to identify that vehicle, which was a gray Honda. You see that up on our picture here from our camera systems. Upon locating that vehicle, we did identify the registered owner of that vehicle, who ultimately was determined to be our suspect in this shooting, who is a Celine Ariano, who was a registered owner. He's 38 years old. So after we identified the vehicle, we started to progress towards developing probable cause for an arrest in this case. The suspect, Ariana, was contacted and arrested yesterday afternoon by our Fugitive Apprehension and Narcotics Unit during a traffic stop near 11th Avenue and Havana Street. Upon searching the vehicle involved in this case, they did recover a firearm and a spent shell casing. That shell casing did NIBIN or linked back to that firearm, so we do know that gun was fired from that vehicle, and we believe it is the weapon used in this crime. So upon that, we were able to, through data, we are looking through phone data and things like that, which is helping to corroborate the fact that this individual was the suspect and was following our victim in this case. When he was arrested, we worked with Homeland Security Investigations. Ariana was transferred into U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement custody on possible federal charges for the possession of the handgun as we waited to secure the arrest warrant in this shooting, which does take time. These investigations, as fast as we work to try to get charges on an individual that we know is responsible, it takes time. And in this case, we actually contacted the suspect before we had that arrest warrant in hand, which takes time to work its way through the judicial system, through the DA's office, and ultimately get to a judge for signing. But because of our partnership with our federal agencies, we were able to get him into custody on the possible federal firearms charges and ultimately transferred into ICE custody. Yesterday evening, we were able to officially charge Ariana for the shooting through the 18th Judicial District, and I'd like to thank them for their help in expediting this case and getting this through to get that arrest warrant secure. He now faces multiple felony charges, including attempted first-degree murder, first-degree assault, menacing, and illegal discharge of a firearm. Ultimately, those charges will be changed if the prognosis of the victim continues to decline and ultimately loses his life because of this. And we don't know if that's going to happen at this time, but it's going that direction. So again, we know this was not random. He was targeting him. There was a relationship that existed with a female that existed between the suspect and the female and the victim. And this person was going after our victim in this case. So again, I want to thank Patrol, our gun violence suppression team, crime scene unit, our real-time information center, and our victim services unit that all responded to help in this case. But what I can tell you is without this technology, without the use of our LPRs and our cameras, we would have not have been able to get a quick resolution to this case. We do know that this suspect was making plans to flee. He was probably going to flee out of the country and escape justice in this case, which is never acceptable. We want to hold people accountable that victimize others. This is a very violent act that occurred, and I know there's a national discussion about flock and the use of flock, but in our community, we use it for criminal purposes, and it just got a violent person off our streets. So, we're thankful that we had that technology and that our real-time crime center had access to that to help backtrack our victim and victim vehicle and ultimately identify our suspect. I'll now turn it over to Chief for any questions.
And again, I just want to kind of reiterate what the chief said, because it's absolutely amazing where we came from. This occurred again on Saturday evening, early morning hours at 1:14. And what we said at the very beginning, we had a car-to-car shooting. Officers responded. All they saw was an individual laying in this crashed vehicle with gunshot wounds, and that was it. And again, through the use of our officers, our detectives, our investigators, and most importantly, which has a huge impact, was the technology. We were able to determine who this individual was, who the suspect was, and hold him accountable. And I think that's something that has to resonate. That has to resonate with this community, because we are without question striving to make sure that this department is moving into the 21st century. We are embracing any forms of technology that enhance that and that allow us to do our work constitutionally, ethically, and morally. And this event, this case here, as tragic as it is, it demonstrates what's the act of the possible. The arrest details, again, when we focus on the suspect, I want to take a second to talk about that as well. Oriana, again, he's a Honduran national. He has 3 prior deportations. These deportations, as you can see behind me, occurred in 2007, 2018, and 2020. He was in the United States illegally at the time of this event on Saturday. And his most recent deportation that occurred, it followed a Denver arrest for sexual assault on a child who was under 15 years old. This individual, without question, represents a proven violent offender who has repeatedly, unfortunately, re-entered this country despite multiple removals. When you think of the impact that he has had to the prior victims, the impact that he has had on Saturday to the victim that is now clinging for life, it's unconscionable to think that this is something that we would ever accept. And again, at the Aurora Police Department, we are doing everything that we can possibly do to ensure that this community is safe. When I think of the wanted disregard and the victimization that this individual has had unfold in the debris field that he has left behind, it's really troubling, and I mean that sincerely. When he shot this individual in a car-to-car shooting, he didn't know, again, what was going to be unleashed. He knew that he was going to impact that driver, but that driver who lost control of that vehicle could have easily gone into other cars. It could have easily killed families. It could have easily killed you. The fact that that didn't happen was a blessing, but it definitely shows the regard for life that this individual, our suspect, does not have. The chief also mentioned an aspect regarding our federal partnerships. Again, this department, as and always will, be shoulder and shoulder with our federal partners. The impact that HSI and ICE had on this event was pivotal. We were able to hold this individual at our ICE facility in Geo based upon the traffic stop that occurred, and the fact that that individual had a firearm in that car, which gave us federal opportunity to hold him into a Geo facility while the investigation continued to unfold, which subsequently resulted in the warrant arrest that was put into place late last night. That partnership was crucial, it was imperative, and it was what's made the difference in this investigation. And again, I'm going to kind of go off track here a little bit, but I think it's something that I really want to say. When I think of these partnerships and I think of the victimization that occurs because these partnerships are in question, it troubles me. The Aurora Police Department does not focus on immigration, as all municipal law enforcement agencies do not, but we do focus on people who victimize others. Having these partnerships, having these relationships, having this connectivity is what made the difference in this case. And it is something, again, it's not about immigration, it's about crime, it's about victimization. And that is something that I want everyone to understand, that when you see law enforcement involved in these endeavors, there's a reason for it. Because the individuals who are involved in these activities are causing harm, are causing victimization. And it's something that the Aurora Police Department will not stand for, and I doubt any other police department in the United States will either. The community message on this is clear. Again, as the chief mentioned, this was not a spontaneous event that occurred and their community needs to have fear or concern about. This was a specific, isolated event that occurred between these two individuals. And it was based upon a relationship that involved all 3 of these individuals. So again, as far as community concern, as far as issues related to the safety of the I-25 north and south, that is not a concern or an issue at this time based upon the apprehension of that individual who is now in custody. For closing remarks, again, I just want to say without question, we focus on law enforcement. We focus on accountability. I think today we saw that. Today we saw law enforcement enter a situation that was very unknown with very limited details, and through the use of technology, we were able to track back who was involved in this event and hold them accountable. Through the investigative skill of our detectives, the interviews that they did, the manner that they conducted it, we were able to hold an individual accountable. Through the partnerships that we have, we were able to stop somebody from fleeing, from possibly hurting or abusing other people, and he was held accountable. So I would like to thank you so much for being here. I would like to thank you for the opportunity, but I really expressly want to thank, again, the men and women of this organization. That is without question the linchpin to a safer community. And our patrol officers, our detectives, our staff, they made that happen. And I am grateful, and the city of Aurora should be very grateful. With that, I'll take any questions.
Chief, what was your concern if you had not been able to turn Oriana over to ICE? Are you concerned that he might have been out on the streets again soon, or what were you worried about there?
Yeah, again, when you talk of those partnerships, that gave us leverage that we didn't have. Because, again, we would not have been able to hold him at that period when we first made contact with him yesterday. Based on the federal charges, the fact that that weapon was located by our detective personnel, that allowed us to hold him into the GO-ICE facility. That in turn allowed the detectives to do additional follow-up and investigation, write a warrant, and then that warrant is now presently in the system and he is held in custody based on that. But the big problem would have been that if that situation would not have been there, the probability that he would have fled again and not been within the realm of our responsibility to control or to apprehend, that is a very high likelihood. And so that partnership, that collaboration was pivotal in ensuring that this incredibly violent individual was taken off the streets of Aurora.
How would you classify, was he following them, was he stalking, how would you classify it, and how far back were you able to backtrack?
Yeah, and I think, again, that is the really amazing part of this, and it's why we celebrate our technology and our real-time information center, because, again, all we had was, we knew the victim's car. Our officers in the real-time information center then took that victim's car, looked at our flock camera systems, looked at our mesh cameras, looked at CCTV, and they started to be able to detail a story that showed our suspect following our victim, following him for a great period of time. We could see accelerations, deaccelerations. We could see where there was stops that occurred, where the suspect would stop and wait for the victim to come back out. So we were able to build a pattern of conduct or a pattern of behavior that linked the two together, that without this use of technology, without the use of cameras, it wouldn't have happened. And all we would have had was a vehicle and a man that was shot multiple times. And so again, I really celebrate that technology, and I celebrate that opportunity that we had to implement that here in the city of Aurora, and the fact that that violent individual is not out victimizing other people based upon the use of that platform.
Chief, you said that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said that the suspect and the victim knew each other through a third person, third party. Is there any indication that that third party had anything to do with the crime that occurred?
Yeah, and that right now is not at all anything that we were looking into. It looked more like a relationship issue. And again, I don't really know the victim's relationship with the suspects other than the fact that there is a connection with a female. And so whatever that involves or details, that's something that unfortunately we are not going to be able to interview our victim. We are working with our female victim of this as well. She's actually been relocated because there was a concern for her safety as this unfolded, and so our victim services were integral as far as placement and helping her. So there was a lot of dominoes that were impactful on this, but we do know that there is some connection with all three of them.
So you're not comfortable saying it's a boyfriend, old boyfriend, mad at new boyfriend or something like that?
Again, the extent of the relationship, there was some type of relationship. To the depth of that, I'm not really 100% sure at this time.
He's gonna be deported again, or you don't know at this point?
Well, what we hope for, again, is that he is held accountable for the crimes that he committed. And so, again, that was the part where we were able to hold him on federal charges at the GO facility. That gave us time to write the warrant. The warrant now is being presented to the district attorney's office. Hopefully they will file on this, and then he will go through the court system here in the United States. based upon what that outcome is. Basically, hopefully he will get the penalty that he deserves, and then from that point, it will be a matter of deportation or not far down the road.
So he could serve time in the federal system if the federal judge decides that, is what you're saying?
Correct. And I hope that happens because, again, there needs to be an accountability component. Because this individual is not, he's not intimidated by going back and forth across the border. I think it's what's been demonstrated on the 3 multiple times he has before. On the last case that I mentioned in 2020, again, this involved unlawful sexual contact with a 15-year-old. That status of that case, again, we're still trying to investigate it and find out, but for whatever reason, he wasn't held accountable for that, and he was able to flee, or he got deported back to Mexico or across the border, at which time that allowed him the ability to almost immediately return. From what we found in the investigation, he returned about 18 months ago. So again, he's been back in this country for 18 months after 3 prior deportations. That's incredibly troubling. I think it speaks volumes about the status of where the border was 18 months ago, and hopefully situations like that will be avoided in the future.
In the flock cameras that you reviewed, were you able to see Oriana taunting him? I heard you say that he was following him and stopping in different places, but did you ever see his face or his body taunting the victim in this case, like the physical presence of his face?
Yeah, I have no information about that, but the one thing it appears is this was not like a road rage situation where he pulled up alongside of him and there was screaming and shouting from what we have from the cameras at this point. All we show is a pattern of conduct where he is very clearly following the victim, tracing his actions, stopping when he stops, accelerating when he accelerates, decreasing his speed when he decreases his. So again, that's what we see in the videos.
And to clarify something that Chief Chamberlain said, the casing found in Oriana's car links him to the shooting on I-225, correct?
That's correct. And I'm going to actually have the chief detail that NIBIN system real quick for you because I think it's worth understanding how that connection works.
Yeah, so essentially we use technology. Every shell casing that's recovered, that's been fired or spent shell casing, that gun leaves a unique imprint on that shell casing, like a fingerprint. So that shell casing in the car that was spent did link back. So we know the firearm recovered in the car matched the shell casing that was in the car. We believe that to be the firearm used. We did not recover any shell casings at the scene because it occurred on the highway, and likely traffic went over that. But it's consistent with that shell casing being recovered in there, that gun was, being fired, and then this incident happening just less than a week ago.
Any other questions?
So
Yep.
there have been some organizations that have been trying to stop cities like Denver from using the flock system. What if those organizations come to you and say, Chief, we want you to stop using that here? What would your response to that be?
My response would be go talk to the family of the victim right now that we have on life support. Go have a conversation with him and say, hey, is this something that you would have been willing to give up based upon misinformation? Because this individual is in custody for one reason and one reason only right now, and that is because of the use of that technology. And I think to get myopic or focused on the wrong aspects of how that technology can or should be used is wrong. And we have had incredible success here in the city of Aurora with our technology, with the use of cameras, with the use of tracking. And I think that unnecessary victimization was stopped based upon that technology. And so when you see groups or individuals protesting or focused on the negative aspect of it, I hope they take a second to look back at the positive aspect of it. The positive aspect is right now we have an individual who is not out in the community, who is not shooting car to car, who is not showing a blatant disregard for the safety of the community in the city of Aurora or anywhere else in Colorado. And I hope that that message resonates, because this is incredibly important, and that technology is incredibly important. Law enforcement, like any other industry, cannot be stagnant. We need technology, we need modifications, we need enhancements, and that is one tool that I will tell anybody is a successful operation. It enhances the operation, it improves the mission. And so I hope that before people just randomly start shutting things off or start getting intimidated about a subject that they really have very limited understanding about, I hope they understand that the human component and the human impact is huge. because we are able to solve crimes without officers being on scene. We're able to do investigations that wouldn't occur otherwise. We are able to change the dynamics of human life based upon the use of technology and the use of those partnerships. So that's what I would say. Talk to the person who right now is breathing through a tube, who most likely is going to be dead in a couple of days, and say that, did that person get the restorative justice that they needed, which is holding that suspect accountable? And the only reason they got that restorative justice is because that technology allowed us to exploit and investigate what unfortunately happened that night.
If and when the suspect dies, as you mentioned that you're expected that life support could be removed soon, will you be putting out a press release to let us know that that has happened and charges could change?
Absolutely. We will modify charges and we'll make sure that the community is aware.
And is there any video that you would be willing to release of the flock cameras that we could use in our recording to show some of that system?
There is. I'm going to work with the detectives and our PIOs, and then we'll see what we can pull up for you.
Maybe for today, for our newscast?
Yeah, we'll definitely try that.
And is the victim from Aurora? Is that person who is on life support now from Aurora?
He is. Anything else? Again, thank you so much. I just want to reiterate just the amazing work. I appreciate you as the facilitators to the community to get this message out, and I mean that sincerely. We always want to make sure that the community is aware of what's unfolding, what's happening. We will continue to focus on the crime, focus on the individuals that are impacting people unnecessarily. The things that worked on this event was the collaboration, was the partnerships, was the technology, and really it was the tenacity of some incredible officers in the city of Aurora and the Aurora Police Department. So thank you very, very much.